Hey guys, I'm Matt, the South Coast Kook. I'm just a kook that loves to talk everything surfing. And today on the show, I've got Chris from Surf More Better. How you going, Chris?
Good, Matt. Thanks for having me.
No
Doing
worries,
well.
man. I'll let you introduce yourself to start off with.
Sure. Yeah, to be honest, I always find this to be the hardest part of any sort of interview process. But yeah, my name's Chris. I'm a surfer. Originally grew up on the east coast of the US. So grew up in New Jersey, just outside New York City. Then I lived in North Carolina for a while, so kind of still on the East Coast, but a little bit warmer temps. And then I moved. Well, I accidentally moved to New Zealand about 8 years ago. So now I'm living on North Island of New Zealand.
So, what was the reason to move to New Zealand?
It was actually a surf trip. So like a few years after uni, my partner and I, now wife, came to New Zealand just trying to do like a 6 month surf trip, bit of overseas holiday, and had a working holiday for a year. So we did like about 6 months. Wasn't really sure what we were going to do afterwards. Still had a year on our visa. So we're like, oh, let's just, let's ride it out, see what happens. Found some work, applied for another visa, work visa. Did that maybe, I think we did that twice. So we applied for two different work visas. And I think we had about 4 years altogether from those. And then we're like, you know what? At this point, like, why don't we just apply for residency? Because that'll give us a little bit extra time. And, it's kind of like the same sort of process, but it just is a little bit more, I don't know, definitely what's the word? There's just more to it, instead of just a work visa, it actually gets like, oh, we could actually live here if we wanted. It was never really the plan, but it was like, we're applying for a visa anyway, let's just try that one. And it worked out. And then now in November, we're eligible for citizenship. And like, there was no plan to be here for that long at all. And we look up and we're like, holy crap, it's been 8 years. So yeah, there you go. Just one of those accidental moments in life that changes your whole course
So,
trajectory.
like, why stay? Is there like sick waves where you are?
Yeah, where we are, actually the waves are pretty average, I'd say. Like given the surfing in New Zealand, where we are is pretty average. But I love surfing in New Zealand, and we get away for the weekends or whatever like quite a bit, and we're pretty central, so we can like hop down to at least three different coastlines that all get different swell directions within a couple hours. So yeah, just the amount of different swell directions and variety and type of waves. There's just and wind direction. Like there's just kind of always something somewhere if you're willing to drive a few hours, which we are. And so we actually like getting out of town and having that little like quick adventure. It just feels like there's always a bit of a sense of adventure here that I like. And even I mean I felt that in Australia too. But I guess similar thing in Australia. It's like if you're on the East Coast, you're kind of on the East Coast. Whereas here you can go east to west, north to south. It gets like there's just so much. It's so dynamic, which
Yes.
I really like. So yeah, it's just fun. It's just like yeah, I always call it the surf adventure that never ended. So that's kind of how it feels.
Yeah, sick, man. Well, how long have you been surfing for?
I've been surfing for about 24 years. I was 8 when I started. Um, yeah, it's kind of crazy to even think that. And we were just talking about how I had my 32nd birthday, so that kind of made me think about it. Yeah, 24 years. And I've just always loved the ocean in general. So it was surfing, boogie boarding, skimboarding, like just swimming, body surfing. I was always in the ocean.
Yeah, sick.
Um, but yeah, so I've been doing it for a while and I still love it just as much. I still feel that like inner Grom in me.
Sick, man. And what boards are you riding?
I'm currently riding. I actually just made myself a 9.4 I guess 9.4 nose rider. It's got like a pretty narrow nose and wide tail. So it's got like some nice wide hips with a rolled bottom. That's been pretty fun. I've only ridden it twice so far, but that's the newest edition. Prior to that, I was riding a 9.6, another one that I'd made, and I don't actually consider myself a shaper at all, but I've made a few boards and I'm kind of just having some fun with it. But those are my longboards right now. I'm also riding, I've got a 5.8 fish that was made by some unknown shaper in the Outer Banks. I found it at one of a surf shop, just like on the used board rack that someone must have made for themselves, didn't like it, kind of just tossed it to the side. And it's been my favorite board. I've had that for years. And actually, my wife and I fight over it all the time, but she usually ends up riding it more than I do.
Smart man.
Yeah, yep. And then I've got a 510 twin fin that I also made that I took out this morning, and that was really fun. That was the first twin fin I've ever made. Um,
There's some sort of weird connection when you make your own board. Hey,
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty new to it. I only just finished board number 6, and so that's 2 longboards. I made my first board was actually made out of cardboard. It was this very experimental thing that I was trying. Um, I had 2 surfs on it, and then water got in it, and I was like, "Oh, that's enough. I'll just, I'll put it in the corner for decoration." It's actually kind of cool because it's hollow, and if you look at it from behind, it like you can actually the light kind of shines through and it looks pretty cool. But yeah, it ended up not being that functional. I tried making a mini Simmons, totally messed that one up, and then I made like I'll say a shortboard, but I don't really go to performance shortboard. It's kind of like a hybrid groveler sort of thing for my wife that she rides every now and then. And then I just made one of those for me, a little bit different, and I made it a twin fin. But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm not a shaper at all, but it is fun, and it makes for me, I like it. I like just thinking about the way that the board actually interacts with the wave, and I find it helps my surfing a lot more. Just like it just helps round it out the experience of yeah, just having that an extra level of connection between like you and the board and the wave. And yeah, I don't know, it's fun.
no, I get that, man. I do heaps of like surfboard reviews for beginners and just
Oh,
trying all
cool.
different shapes and all different sizes. It's just it opens your surfing up. I find you get kind of
Hmm.
put in a box if you ride the same shape, the same board every day. It's yeah, it's experimental but really beneficial. I find.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that's kind of what got me into it. Like I love trying new boards. I'm constantly trying new boards. And like if I see people out in the water, I'll be like, oh, you want to like swap boards for a bit? And some people are into it, not others. But um yeah, so between doing that and then like, I don't know, buying boards, I like, getting new boards is fun, but I can't keep doing that all the time. So this was like the next, I guess, progression of that. Like, oh, maybe I'll just make one and be a little bit cheaper. And I don't know if it'll go as good, but I'll learn a bit along the way.
Nah, I get that,
Yeah,
man.
that's cool. What I was gonna ask, what sort of recent boards have you tried out and reviewed that you've been enjoying?
I actually I don't ride a lot of like mid-length like single things. I'm pretty much like I like a 20, I like a longboard, but I got my hands on a critical slide angler, which is like I know the
Mm-hmm.
Hermit, sorry, the Hermit. Um and it just sort of like I went, oh wow, this is pretty fun. This is pretty cruisy. Like I kind of like rid it off to start off with, but yeah, I enjoy it. And it's now like I've sort of designated that board for those fatter, longer waves, you know?
Nice.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be riding like a 7 foot mid length thing, but yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that's interesting because I rode one of those a couple years ago. I was like a 7.2, and I was like, wow, this is actually really fun. And now I feel like it's the major gap within my quiver right now is having something, that sort of mid-length um sort of range. Because a lot of the waves here, like the waves that we are pretty soft, which is why we longboard a lot. But when it gets bigger and it's still soft, I don't like riding. I don't really like riding a longboard when it's that big. I'd rather take out something else.
Yeah.
But I feel like a mid length would be the perfect board for those conditions. So that's probably going to be the next one for me.
Oh, 100%. I use the golf club analogy all the time, but like you need a full set. You need the full set of golf clubs. Like you need the full set of balls.
Yeah, totally.
Do you have like a favorite wave or a best wave of your life that stands out?
Hmm. Um, oh, this is a hard question. I feel like I've got a lot of really good sessions, and I don't even know how to answer that, but I've had a lot of really fun sessions around New Zealand, different parts of New Zealand. Um, yeah, I don't think, to be honest, I don't even think I can answer that. My mind is just overwhelmed with the amount of good sessions that I've had in my life. But
Hey, the way I see it, that's a good thing, man. If you've got too many
yeah,
waves to choose from, that's good.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. That's a tough question, but there's just generally days. I just love the days where it's like maybe low expectations, but you just kind of, it's consistent and just fun. It's not like, not overly big or crazy or anything. And if there's like, a big hyped swell, it often for me leads to disappointment because it's like built up in my head. But it's just like those random days that you kind of just go down, and you're like, oh, it actually looks kind of fun. And you go out yeah, I don't know.
No,
I
I
don't
get
even know
that,
where I'm
bro.
going with
I
that,
get that.
but
I get that for
yeah.
sure. Do you have a favorite place to surf? Like, is there a place that sort of is a good go to for you?
I've got a few favorites. I'm not gonna. This is interesting. I don't like to mention
Yeah.
name of
Hey,
breaks or anything, but
everyone does it. Secret safe with me, mate. I
yeah,
get
I
it.
mean, yeah, I don't have secret spots or anything, but there's a few regions that I really like. Um, that just generally I can like almost rely on going down there and having a good time. So like on both the I'm sorry, the east and west coast of New Zealand are always really fun. And then actually back in my wife's hometown, I really like surfing there. She's from a town in North Carolina,
Yeah, sick.
and it's pretty fickle over there, but when it gets fun, it's like really fun. And then there's just like a nice kind of home local feel to it, I guess. I guess at this point it's a bit nostalgic for us, but yeah.
That's sick,
Um,
man.
yeah.
Well, like we got a little bit of your surf history down, Pat. So I thought we'd dive into what Surf More Better is.
Sure. So that I'm calling it like a surf education series. So I share like a weekly um surf tip of some sort. I cover a lot of longboard technique and that sort of thing. And then I've been branching out into some other topics around just I'll say the wider aspects of surfing. So a little bit of like how waves work and some forecasting type stuff. And I'm going to be diving into a little bit around board design, or at least my interpretation of it. But yeah, I just share a weekly tip on my Instagram page. Just and now actually there's a newsletter and a website to go with it. But it's just like, yeah, just some resources for people to learn more about certain things, and especially mostly around longboarding. That's the main focus.
So
Um,
why'd you start it?
yeah, that's a good question. So there's a couple reasons why. One of them is definitely like a personal challenge. So I have, I guess, battled procrastination at um, a lot of times in my life. And so this was a way for me to like fight back against that. And I've done a few projects in the past, like smaller projects. And then there's also been a lot of projects that just never got done. And it really started to bother me. Um, and so I was like, you know what? I think it was December of last year. I kind of had this idea of like, what if I could post, a surf tip? Prior to that, I'd been doing a few random things, posting a few random like helpful things. But then I was like, what if I could do one a week for the year? That would be 50 with like an intro and an ending at the end. And I just sat down and I typed out like 35 in that moment. And I was like, whoa, okay. If I did that just then, I think I could do the year. even though I didn't have everything fleshed out, it was like enough to get me going. So yeah, it's kind of a way to like fight back against procrastination. And I still procrastinate, but I now do it on a weekly basis instead of, a yearly basis or whatever. So that was one major reason. It's just like the personal challenge for myself. And then I guess the reason I chose this project as opposed to anything else was mostly around my own, there's a few things about my own journey into longboarding. It's pretty recent. Like I've only been doing it for 4 or 5 years, and I found there just wasn't much info out there. And I've seen a lot of other people who are newer on their journey, or even just some friends and stuff who are new to surfing in general, just not really having much resources or anything to go off of. There's a lot of like beginner surfing stuff, but beyond that, it's kind of like, all right, good luck. And so I was like, well, I've been surfing for over 20 years and I've got a wealth of knowledge that I can just kind of just share my point of view. It's not necessarily like this is the way to do it, but it's just I get to share my point of view and things that have worked for me and other people might benefit from it. And I've been doing that with a few of our friends and they've found it helpful. And so, yeah, it's just kind of a way to, I guess, contribute to the surf community in a way that felt good for me,
Yeah,
that
for
would
sure.
benefit people.
Like that's why I had to get you on the show because like there's a lot of high performance shortboard riding stuff out there. No,
Mm-hmm.
there's very little longboarding. Like it's good to see that someone's trying to break off and, help people out for sure.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I found it pretty tough. Like I was trying to find stuff 5 years ago or so, and there were a couple things buried deep in some forums. I luckily was like pretty good at doing some online research. Um, but other than that, it just took a lot of like trial and error for myself and watching other people and like really taking the time to analyze sort of, their surfing and try it for myself. And then also like communicate that to my wife because we picked it up at the same time. And
Yeah.
that helps me be able to articulate it, which is difficult to do, especially with surfing. Like everything's a feeling. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, it kind of feels like this. And yeah, it's really hard to actually explain it. But I find it actually helps my surfing as well. So it's like that benefit side to it.
No,
So yeah.
totally get that, man, for sure. Um, what do you do for work, man? Because your Instagram page and your website is just it's nice, man. It's beautiful to look at.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of photographer friends, so I credit a lot of the photos to them. My wife's actually a photographer. A lot of our surfer friends that we go with are all photographers, so that's where a lot of the photos come from. So I'm very grateful to them. Maybe I'll give them a quick shout out, a couple
Yeah.
of them. But yeah, Rainbow Estrada is one of them. He's a New Zealand surf photographer. Elkie May is another one. She's from Australia and does like surf lifestyle. The other one's Lulu B Photo. She does a lot of I'll say ocean and just natural landscapes and the moon. She takes like these amazing moon photos. I don't know how she does it, but it's actually I think I've become obsessed with the moon from her photos. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Those are the few that come top of mind. And then, oh, and then of course my wife Jess Loker. She's also a photographer. She doesn't do any of the surf photos, but she does all of my behind the scenes project photos and stuff. So yeah, little shout out to them. But I never answered your question. What I do for work?
Yeah.
So yeah, I work in the tech industry and I am currently working as a designer, more like UX type design.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I come from actually from a development background doing like programming. So I don't really come from I'll say traditionally creative field. Like I haven't come from graphic design or anything like that, but I've always enjoyed it. And so with just projects in the past, I've always dabbled in those sorts of things and just done it for my own. So yeah, some of those graphics, I kind of pieced together a few things off of Canva, which is, I don't know if you've heard of that, but
Yeah,
that's,
Canva's my bread and butter at the moment.
yeah. Oh, I think everyone kind of is thriving off of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I found a few things on there and pieced it together, and yeah, I don't think I would have been able to do it without that, but that's been helpful.
Yeah, well, your design's awesome, man. And like
Oh,
love
thanks.
clicking onto your page. Everything's nice and pretty and looks neat. So yeah, good job, man, for what you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
What's been the feedback since starting this? Have you got a lot of positive feedback?
Yeah, honestly, I've been like blown away by it. I can't even believe the amount of I guess people that have caught on to it, like started engaging with comments or sharing it around or started following my page or yeah, I get people writing me like private messaging me like really nice messages and just like, wow, this is amazing. And then I've got this buy me a coffee page, which is kind of like a Patreon sort of voluntary donation if people want to like chip in. And I've had people do that. I could put that up as like, oh, I'll just put it up and maybe like my mom and one of her friends will chip in. But I've had like a bunch of strangers actually chip in and say really nice things. So the response has been overwhelmingly positive, and I'm so grateful for everyone that's been following along or engaging or writing me messages or anything. Like it's so nice to see that. And it honestly, like this project being a way to fight procrastination, I feel like maybe I would have uh had a much harder time if it weren't for that. So yeah, I'm just really glad that people have been so stoked about it and actually said those nice things because it definitely helps to keep things going for me. Gives me that little extra boost of motivation.
Yeah,
Keep
sick.
doing it.
Did you, when you started putting pen to paper, did you think it was going to be as big as what it is?
No, not at all. No way. I think I had a few like key people share it around. Like one of my friends has 100 something thousand followers. He ended up sharing it, and I'm sure something came from that. But then I had random strangers with like 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers share it around, and just like I guess genuinely received value from it, which is cool, and shared it. I have no idea who they are. And yeah, I just saw a few spikes from that. And then I think I ended up on Instagram's explore page a few times, and that every time that happened, it was like uh yeah, the follower count really went up. But like honestly, I'm not even doing it for the followers. Like it's really cool to see that happening. But um yeah, at the end of the day, those are kind of just like I'll say more vanity metrics. But
Yeah, it's all just numbers. Hey,
yeah, it is. It is. But yeah, I was not expecting this at all.
especially
So
like because your platform is like, because it is Instagram and it is for free and anyone can sort of access it. So it's not driven by money or anything like that. So you're just trying to share the message, and as many numbers as it goes up, it doesn't like really matter as long as people are getting value from your tips.
yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sweet. Cool. I summed that up really well.
Yeah, you did.
So like what's your biggest tip for longboarding in the sense of like what do you see people do that you're like, nah, look, this is like a good go-to tip to sort of get up and running?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing that people want to be doing is obviously like cross stepping and ultimately nose riding,
So, which
right? I
is
mean,
like, on a side note, I'm a terrible longboarder. It is so hard to cross step and get to the nose.
okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, so with nose riding, I think one thing that a lot of people look at is the actual nose ride itself. But one of the tips I wrote about, or one of the ways that I think about it, is that nose riding is like 90% preparation and 10% glory, is what I call it. So like that moment on the nose is like the final 10% of, the nose riding, the act of nose riding. So like most of the work actually comes in all of the preparation work. So if you're watching a video and you see someone nose riding, pause it, go back and look at, okay, how did they actually get into that position? Because that's the important part. And so the most common mistakes that I see people making is not being in the right position on the wave. They're generally too far on the shoulder.
Yeah, I was
And
going to say I read one of your tips and it was about sort of sitting in that pocket better.
yeah, so
I know
that's the
for a
main
fact
thing.
I'm just like I'm sprinting to the nose every time and just like dying out quick. So
Yeah, yeah. So that would be the main thing. Like most people are out on the shoulder, and that was something that I had done. And it actually wasn't until I saw myself on video that I realized just how far on the shoulder I was. Um, yeah. So like in terms of nose riding, it is all about like trying to get back into the pocket. So whether that's throwing in a stall or doing a cutback or fading your takeoff or um, one way to do it is actually seeing if there's a section coming up in front of you and actually waiting for that section to stand up in front of you. So instead of going back to the pocket, you can go forward and meet the section in front of you. So I think those are kind of the two ways, is like either go forward and meet the section or come back into the pocket. And it's just like a dance between those two sorts of things.
yeah.
And yeah, that's my biggest piece of advice, I guess.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, this is a perfect segue now into you're doing a bit of video analysis as well.
Yeah, so that's something that I'm uh about to launch. I've got a wait list going right now, and actually there's a giveaway. I don't know if this will be out in time for the giveaway. There's 1 week left from today, so it'll be August 14th, I think is the last day. But yeah, so I've got a wait list right now for a video analysis, and that is mostly for anyone who just wants maybe a little bit extra like personalized advice. So all the tips and stuff that I've been sharing is free, and if that is enough for people, then sweet, power to them. But if anyone who's wanting like some extra personalized advice and some more specific, like, okay, this is what I would recommend working on next, because it can be overwhelming on what to do next. To continue progressing, then yeah, that's something that I'm about to launch. Just as I guess, something extra that people can choose to do. So that's something that I've done with myself and some friends of ours in the past few years, and it's been really helpful for all of us. So yeah, kind of just starting to expand that out.
And that's not just limited to longboarding. That's anything.
It can be anything. I'm really focusing on longboarding right now,
Yeah.
mostly just to maintain focus. And there's a lot of other people doing other sorts of surfing, and I find that like longboarding is pretty popular right now. There's a lot of people getting into it, and there's still not really many resources out there. And I've spoken with people who are like wanting to focus on longboarding and working with surf coaches who don't longboard, and there's just kind of like this actual disconnect because it is a different type of surfing. And
Oh,
even like
100%.
yeah, even when I switch back and forth between shortboarding and longboarding, it always takes a few waves to kind of adjust my surfing and to get used to the board, but just like adjust my surfing to yeah, whichever one I switch to.
Have you done any like competitive surfing?
I'm gonna say no, even though I've done some contests. I'm not a competitive surfer. So like when I was a Grom, I did a lot of our local comps, and I was horrible at it. I would often miss my heats because I was out surfing, doing my warm up, but I just wouldn't come back in. So I'd miss my heats, or yeah, I don't know. It's not really the environment that I thrive in, and I just like surfing for the fun of it. I really love the playful nature of it. So adding in that competitive element just isn't for me. Even though I'll still do a couple. So I'll do maybe two a year. There's a local one I did here that was like a fundraising event for a local family. And then there's one maybe an hour and a half from where we are called the West End Wiggle. That's a fun event. And it's like, it's like 2-day event. So On the one day it's invitation only, and the next day there's actually a tag team event, which I've never done before. But that's like, yeah, you kind of, it's more of a fun thing.
Yeah.
One person goes out, catches a wave, next person comes in, tags their teammate, and you kind of get scored on. It's not really a race. You have to finish within a certain amount of time, not so much who finishes first, but you can do like silly stuff. And then the last two people have to catch a party wave together. And if you don't do that, you're disqualified. So I don't know. It's just,
Bit
it's
of
kind
fun.
of a goofy thing. Yeah, a bit of fun. But yeah, so I'll do, maybe one or two of those a year. But in terms of like competitive surfing, not really. Nope.
So, what tip are we up to at the moment? What number are we up to?
We're on, I just did the 30th one last week, and I think 31 is coming out tomorrow,
Okay.
which
It,
I'm still writing right now.
I was literally going to say, what do we expect in the next 20? But if you're still writing tomorrow's one, that's fine.
Yeah, well, I've got a rough outline for the next few, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna start talking a little bit around different longboard designs and just things that I look for in a longboard, because that's like, it's pretty overwhelming trying to pick out a board. Like I know that I kind of had a hard time, and I'm still like, it's just hard to know. And so actually, with my first recommendation with picking out a board, it's just trying some. So if you can swap with friends or anyone in the water, just try different boards and kind of see what you like. Um, but yeah, I'm going to talk about a bit around some different design elements and how that affects the ride, your ride essentially, and maybe the different conditions that it's good for, with a few different longboard tips thrown in the mix as well.
Yeah, cool. I'm really excited to look forward to those ones.
Thanks.
So let's plug the socials now. So you've got your Instagram, which is
Yeah, my Instagram is Chris Hedem, so that's just my name. Chris, and then last name is Hetem. And then I've got a website which is surfmorebetter.com. And that's kind of where all the tips are going, and then the video analysis that's coming out is going to be going onto that. And then I might even, yeah, I've got some other ideas for the future, but we're just taking it one step at a time and letting it evolve organically.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's funny. I've always been like unsure about like, oh, should I do it under my personal name? Should I create a new Instagram? But then I've got to manage a whole new Instagram. So I've definitely had that like internal conflict, but I'm just running with it for now. And it seems to
yes,
be going all right.
yeah, sweet man, yeah, sweet. So I've got one last question for you, man.
Sure.
What does surfing mean to you?
Oh, what does surfing mean to me? I don't know if I've ever been asked this question. I've
It's
lived a
my
whole life
favorite
of
question to
surfing.
ask. Everyone always stalls.
Yeah, I've lived a whole life of surfing, and I've never been asked this question. Um, what does it mean to me? I don't really know how to answer that, but I just, I just, I don't know. I just love surfing. Like it's definitely a huge um part of my life, and the way that my wife and I are trying to like live our life. We're basically trying to build a lifestyle around surfing. Um, and that kind of it makes a lot of decisions. Like honestly, a lot of my major decisions in life have come from like surfing being part of it. So like where I went to uni, or all of the family vacations that we've ever gone on, and like things like that. And even like trying to determine career paths and stuff, it's always been like, is that going to let me go surfing as much as I want? You know what I mean? So um yeah, it's definitely been a huge part of my life in that way. And then like the actual act of surfing, I just love the playful nature of it. Like it's just, it always makes me feel so good after the fact. And even if it isn't that great of a surf, I'm always glad that I went. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just, there's just something about it. I don't know. It's like, it's one of those things that you can't describe, but you know it's there. So
You know it if you know it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Well, like to all my listeners who want to take their longboarding to the next step, definitely reach out. Or, even if you're learning to surf, look at Surf More Better. A lot of helpful tips in there and to take your longboarding to the next level. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been good. I've
I'm
enjoyed it.
excited to see the journey ahead for you.
Thank you. Same for you. Same for the podcast.
Cheers, man. Thank you.